Hey, fellow problem solvers, Colfax Math here today. We're doing ASVAB math preparation, but this is going to help on any standardized math exam. It's part of a book called Math Test Success, 25 chapters, 25 support videos, so I could be with you every step of the journey. The goal of this is for you to be successful on any math exam, get back in the game, and then kind of proceed from there with these foundational math skills. So with that said, today is Chapter 9, Word Problems. We're going to go over how to tackle word problems on a standardized math exam. Then we're going to look at distance, rate, and time problems. And we're going to look at simple interest problems. So to get started on word problems, there are just a bunch of phrases that translate directly to math notation. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those. It's really like a language course. Just translating words to notation. So a number or an unknown quantity, that's going to be our unknown, or x, our variable x. The sum means to add. The difference of is subtraction. The product means to multiply. Quotient is division. Is or equals results in is an equal sign. More than, increase by, is going to be addition. Less than, decrease by, is a minus. Twice is 2 times. Half is multiplying by a half or dividing by 2. Percent of is 100% times whatever number you're talking about. The best way to do all of these is I'm going to go over a pretty short lesson on the topic. Then we're going to have some examples. And then some practice problems. You should have a notebook in front of you and pencil. You should pause the video, do the problems before I do them. And at the end of every chapter, there's a chapter test. Again, I would just pause that video, do the best you can on that test, unpause that video, and I'll walk through it with you. This is a book. It's not quite available, but it will be soon. And I'll put links in the description. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these examples here. The sum of a number and 5. Well, a number, I don't know what that is, so I call it x. And 5 means x plus 5. Twice a number, less 3. Twice a number, 2x, less minus 3. 15% of a number is 30. So I don't know what that number is, so I call it x. 15% of it, decimal equivalent, times whatever it is equal to 30. Then I'd have to solve for x by dividing both sides by 0.15. Here's some strategies. Really read carefully. Circle words that are key to the problem. Identify what it is that is not known. And then you know that's going to be your variable, your x. Translate the phrase, break the problem into smaller phrases, and translate them into algebraic expressions. Form the equation, combining expressions to make the equation. Solve the equation, and then always check your answer on a standardized test. If there's time, you want to check your answer. All right, moving along here. Here are some simple age problems. John is 3 years older than Mary. If Mary is X years old, how is John? So this is the assignment of Mary's age, and he's 3 more than that. So John's age is Mary's age, X plus 3. Next one. 5 times a number, I don't know what that number is, so I call it x, decreased by 7 is equal to 23. So now I have an equation, not just an expression. So 5 times the number, you could use n or x or any variable. 5 times the number decreased by 7 is equal to 23. Then once I have that equation, I'm going to add 7 to both sides to get 5n equals 30. Divide both sides by 5, and n is equal to 6. I take that solution, plug it back in, make sure it works. 6 times 5, 30 minus 7 is 23. So here's some practice problems right here. Go ahead and pause the video. Do these problems, don't pause the video, watch how I do it. The quotient of a number and 4. The quotient of a number and 4. The quotient of a number, so there's a number and 4. Quotient is division. 6 less than 3 times a number. 3 times a number less 6. 25%, I remember this like an arrow going over 1, 2, decimal equivalent 0.25 of a number is 50. That's a hard one because you want to take 25% of 50, but it's saying 25% of something is 50. I would divide both sides by a quarter to get 200. 25% of 200 is 50. The sum of twice a number and 10, the sum of twice a number and 10 is 30. There's an equation. Solve that equation, isolate x by subtracting 10 from both sides. 2x is equal to 20. X is equal to 10. Number 5, a number is increased by 12 and is equal to 20. Solving for x, I subtract 12 from both sides. X is equal to 8. They're pretty hard to translate. A lot of people have trouble with word problems more than any other section usually because it's both reading comprehension and math. But hopefully going through some of these techniques and tricks, you'll be able to convert them into equations and solve those equations. Let's move on from there. Let's take a look at distance, rate, and time. So our equation for distance, rate, and time is that distance is equal to rate times time. And looking at units is a good way to do it. So let's just look at this example. A car travels 60 miles per hour, so that's a quotient sign, 60 miles per hour, for 2 hours. So if I keep track of my units, how far does it travel? So it is asking me for the distance, and I'm taking the rate, miles per hour, times the time, and I could see my hours will cancel, and that's going to give me miles, which is the distance, and that's where that 60 times 2, that's where that 120 miles comes from. Let's take a look at another example here. A train travels 300 miles per hour. So I have 300 miles per 5 hours is still a rate. What is the average speed? Wait, a train travels 300 miles in 5 hours. My mistake there. So I have 300 miles, that's the distance. What is the rate? Really, my pen's not going to work now. 300 miles is my distance in 5 hours. So I have a distance, I am looking for the rate, and I have time 5 hours. Again, keeping track of my units, I'm solving for a rate. I divide both sides by 5 hours. These cancel. If I do that to the right side, I do it to the left side as well. And then I have rate is equal to 300 miles per 5 hours. A rate is distance over time. That's what I have. 300 divided by 5 is at 60 miles per hour. Keeping track of those units and seeing it on kind of the easier ones will really help a lot when we get to harder problems. All right, let's move on to our practice problems here. Again, pause the video, do these problems before I do them. A rectangle has a length that is 5 inches longer than its width. So if this is width, the length is whatever the width is plus 5. We double check that. The length is 5 inches longer than the width. If the width is W, what is the length? Well, the length is going to be W plus 5. A plane flies 500 miles per hour. So remember, we have distance is equal to rate times time. A plane flies 500 miles per hour. That's a rate for 3.5 hours. And then I can see as well that my hours are going to cancel, and that's going to give me a distance. How far does it travel? It wants a distance. So I do 500 times 3.5. Might be able to figure that out. 500 times 3 is 1,500. And then 1,500, I still need the 0.5. 0.5, half of 500 is 250. So that's going to give me 1,750. Number 3, if 8%, 0.08 of a number is 24, what is that number? Solving for x, I divide both sides by 0.08. That's going to give me x by itself. And then over here, I have 24. Think of that fraction falling over this way. 0.08 goes into 24. Let's say 24. I'm going to move this over 1, 2. 1, 2. 8 goes into 24 3 times. Bring down the 0, and I'm going to have 300. Let's see if that even makes sense. 8% of a number, 8% of 300 is 24. Yeah, that seems about right. All right, well, I'll just do those first 3, and then from there, we're going to go down here to interest problems. We talk a little bit about calculating simple interest. And then at the end here, we got a few of these practice problems. I won't do them all. And then we have our test to go over all of it. So let's talk about interest for a minute here. Interest, the equation for interest. Interest is equal to the amount of money, the principal, times the rate, times the time. Okay, so if you invest $1,000, that is the principal amount, at 5% interest, convert that to a decimal, 0.05, for 3 years, you would take that principal times that interest rate times the years to get $150. So if you were putting that money in the bank, your principal would be $1,000. At the end of that time, you would have $150 of interest, and you would get $1,150 back. So remember, all of this stuff is really about translating word problems into English. And you got to go slow and think it through and really identify the variables. So let's do some interest problems here. So Sarah invests $2,000, that's her principal, into a saving account that earns 3% interest, 1, 2. So I multiply that by 0.03 per year. How much will she earn in 5 years? So I could do multiplication's commutative. So I could take this 0.03, we change colors here, show you a quicker way to multiply this out, go over 1, 2, so that's like multiplying by 100. But moving that over 2, I could get rid of 2 of those. So then I could just do 3 times 20, 60, times 5, 300. Let's see if that even makes any sense. I'm earning 3% interest, pretty low interest rate, 4 or 5 years. The interest I earn is $300. Now we're going the opposite. Rather than putting money in the bank, I'm borrowing money. John borrows $5,000 from a bank to buy a car. Simple interest of 0.06 for 3 years. How much interest will he pay? Again, I'm going to move this over and make it a 6, moving it over 2 places. 50 times 6 is 300, times that 3 is 900. So he will pay $900 in interest. The interest rate's a lot higher, so you'd expect the amount to be a lot more. Okay, number 3, Maria deposited $1,500 into a CD. It pays simple interest at 4.5%. So I have $1,500 principal times 0.045 times 2 years and 6 months, 2.5. How much interest will she have earned? So I'm going to stick with years here, 2 years, 6 months. I need to multiply all this out. I won't do that here, but I'm going to take 2 off of there and go over 2 here. So I'm going to take 4.5 times 15 times 2.5. So there are some interest problems. Now let's move on to this practice test. So really kind of 3 parts to this test. The first part of the test is just converting the word problem to numbers. The second part of the test is distance, rate, time problems. And then finally, simple interest. I don't think I'll do all of them. If you get the book, you could get the digital download or buy the book. The key will be included in there. So number 1, 5 more than a number. I don't know what that number is. I'm just call it X. And 5 more than that. Again, pause the video. Do these problems. Unpause. Twice a number is decreased by 7. The product of a number and 3, product means multiply, product of a number and 3 is equal to 12. These are expressions. Go back and watch the chapter on expressions if you're not quite sure the difference between the expressions and equations. And then now that I have an equal sign, now I have an equation. Now I need to solve. Divide both sides by 3 to get x equals 4. A number is divided by 4 and increased by 2. The sum of 2 consecutive integers. So I have an integer. An integer is a counting number like 1, 2, 3. So let's say this is 5, and I want to take that 5 and the next one in the series, 5 plus 6 is what I'm looking for. So if this is 1, the next one would be n plus 1. So this is my first number, whatever it is. This is my consecutive number. Right? So if this were 5, this would be 6, and the sum of 2 consecutive integers would be that 5 plus that 6, or an 11. Okay, and then on this, you could simplify it a little bit to get 1n plus another n, 2n plus 1. All right, let's do some distance rate problems here. Again, I don't think I'm going to do all of these. A car travels at a speed of 60 miles per hour. So I have 60 miles per hour for 3.5 hours. So I have distance is equal to rate times time. These are hours. My hours will cancel. How far does it travel? So I'm looking for a distance in miles, so that'll work. So I have 60 times 3, 180. 60 times 0.5, half of 60 is 30. So I have 210 miles. Okay, number 7, Maria drove 220 miles. That's the distance. It is equal to the rate. What is her rate? Times her time, right? So this is going to be miles. This is hours. Miles divided by hours will give me that rate. And I think 220 divided by 4 is 55. And my units will be miles per hour. Okay, I don't want this video to go on too long. A couple more problems to practice and look at the answer key below. Let's go down to these interest rate problems here. The truth is, banks, loans, companies, they don't really charge simple interest. They charge compound interest if you're borrowing money, meaning as soon as you borrow money, you start accruing interest, and they charge you interest on that interest. So the simple part says you're not using that complex compounding formula, you're just using this one. So calculate the simple interest earned on $1,000, that's my principal, at an annual interest rate of 0.05 for 4 years. My trick again right here, I'm going to move this over 1, 2. So I'm going to get rid of those. So I have 10 times 5, 50. 50 times 4, $200 is the amount of interest I'm paying. Let's think about that for a minute. I pay 5% interest on $1,000. That's $50 a year. Times 4 years, $200 seems about right. This one right here is a little trickier. How much principal? So I want to know how much principal. So that's kind of my unknown. At an annual interest rate of 8%. So principal times 8% to earn $400 in interest after 2 years. So how much principal, that's what I don't know, so I'm going to call it P, must be invested at an interest rate of 0.08 for 2 years. So now I have my equation. 2 times 0.08 is going to be 0.16 times P. Got to divide both sides by 0.16 to get principal by itself. Now I have 400 divided by 0.16. So I got to go 400 divided by 0.16. I'm going to move this over 1, 2. From here I go over 1, 2. So that's 16 into 40,000. It'll go into 40 twice. Give me 32. 80. 16 goes into 85 times. And then it's going to be 0, 0. So the question is, how much principal must you have? I have to have $2,500 at an interest rate of 8% for 2 years to make $400. And that seems about right. Okay, a couple more problems here. This one's a little trickier. I guess I'll do one more and then we'll call it quits there. If you're new to the channel, think about subscribing. I appreciate you watching this. Please feel free to share this. My goal is really for folks who really never had that good math education to make up for those deficits through this online course. Yeah, so if you like it, please hit like and subscribe and wait for the next videos. So an investment of $300, right? So that's my principal. So my investment is $300. My principal, 300. An investment of 300 earned $450 in interest. So $300, no, $3,000 earned $450 in interest over 3 years. What is the interest rate? So what is the interest rate? So I'm going to use R for rate, interest rate. Right, so let's read this again. I earned $450. That's my interest. It is equal to the amount I started with, my principal, for 3 years times my rate of interest. I have an equation. I'll solve that equation. 450. 3,000 times 3 is 9,000 times R. I got to divide both sides by 9,000. Right, so these will cancel. That'll give me my interest rate by itself. I'll cancel one of those zeros with one of those zeros. Remember that fraction falling over. I want to know how many times 900 goes into 45. Well, it doesn't, so that's got to be 0. Put a decimal place here. 900 into 450, it doesn't. My decimal place comes up. Put another 0 there. 900 and 4,500 goes in 5 times. So the interest rate is 0.05 or 5% interest. So they're not easy. They take a lot of time converting words into math notation. And then the 2 specific ones are interest problems and distance, rate, time problems. Again, if you have any questions, please post them in the comments. Stay tuned for the next chapter video. If you made it this far, fantastic. You're doing great. You're doing the work so you could do well on any math exam. Thank you.